Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Episode number 360, Peter. How are you this morning?
Doing fine. How are you, Bill?
Yeah, you survived 360 episodes of me talking to you.
Barely.
Talking at you, and at times yelling at you.
Tough skin.
Yeah. I was thinking about it this morning. So, I was looking at our stats, and it's like, I don't know, I'm going to have to make some changes, and I'm not sure what it is. I've been kind of on a roll lately of, like, more philosophy than actual stuff, so I gotta rethink that. I'm going to have to go over it with my coach. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to start off with the way you could reach me or myself. Yeah, me or myself. Or me or Peter is to go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. I would like if you would go there and go to the support ticket and send us some feedback of what you would like us to do podcast on, so we can supply what's needed and wanted. So that would be a tremendous help. We will talk about any type of real estate you want to talk about. I'll make a whole episode around it if you want. In fact, even if you do want to, we could bring you on as a guest speaker. And we can ask you questions live. So, Flipping Houses for Rookies, top right-hand side is support. All right, so here's today's title. Are you ever tongue-tied when talking to real estate sellers? Here's the description. Do you feel that navigating the complex world of creative real estate can leave you thinking you have to learn a new language? Having to learn the dance between you and the seller, the jargon, the bargaining, the seller's situation, how to influence while wrapping the whole thing in a nice, neat little bow we call a deal. Hell, it can even leave the most experienced tongue-tied. If you want to untangle that knot in your throat while talking to sellers for creative real estate deals, then this single podcast is perfect for you. We will take a deep dive into the art and science of talking to sellers to make gargantuan deals. You'll hear an in-depth discussion and understanding that gets sellers to say yes to taking monthly payments until paid off, or giving a discount. Don't let your lack of tongue tie you down any longer. Join us today, and you will soon unravel the mysteries of how to talk to real estate sellers with favorable results, and then you will soon see each conversation and an opportunity, not an obstacle. All right, so let's just do some housekeeping. We're going to do it quick today. Be careful, because when you do that, it makes a bunch of noises on the microphone.
Oh.
Yeah, you're rubbing your mic. Yeah, anyways, so I don't want to go back to the beginning days when they said they couldn't hear us because of the gargle.
Right.
Anyways, housekeeping. So I already mentioned that I am looking for feedback on episode titles and topics that you would like to cover on creative real estate. It could be any type of real estate, but creative real estate is what we do. So go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand side, support, and the ticket will come right to me. I would love to hear your feedback, hear your questions, and if you want to be a guest speaker, as long as you're a listener, I will consider it. I get a lot of opportunities, Peter, every week for guest speakers to come on and talk about them. Mm-hmm. I could do that. I could probably do that. Maybe my listeners would like that. But, go to Bigger Pockets for that kind of stuff, or go to one of those other podcasts, because we don't do that here. We talk about creative real estate, and lately we've been talking very profound, a lot of philosophical type theories and stuff like that. So we'll have to swing it back and get into some real tactical stuff. So the other thing is please subscribe to us, like us if you're on one of the platforms. We record this podcast every Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. We live stream it on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you want to listen to us, just go to one of those platforms and type in Flipping Houses for Rookies, and you can catch us live. If you are with us live and have questions, you can type them into wherever you type into one of those platforms, and it comes right to me, and I'll answer those questions. I prefer those questions be about the podcast, not other things. If you do have questions about other things, you can go to our WhatsApp Messenger and type in "Let's Talk Real Estate," be part of the group. You go to the support, which I just told you how to do. And I also have a new tool. If you go to creativerealestateanswers.com, I can answer your questions there. It's an AI, but I trained it. I uploaded a whole bunch of documents and spent quite a bit of time on it, and it's a great tool to use.
Bill,
Okay,
Bill, say the name again. Creative Real Estate Answers?
.com.
Got it.
creativerealestateanswers.com.
Good.
Okay, so today, before we get started, I would like you to know that we're going to cover a little bit of theory on asking questions or being tongue-tied. And then at the end, Peter, we're actually going to do a role play. We did one the other night in the coaching call, so it's going to be similar to that. I should have probably told you that before we started the call, but we got started a little bit late and I got confused. So I'm going to have you be the actual seller, and I'm going to be the buyer, and I'm going to show you how I would do it, and the reason why we do it. This is the first time we've ever done this publicly, this script publicly, and it's not necessarily a script. It's just 4 or 5 bullet points that I'm going to cover to show you how we get slot deals, and how we get rent-to-own deals, and how we get agreement for deed deals. Okay, so I'm going to cover some of the theory first, and then at the second half or the last part of the podcast, I'm going to actually do a role play with Peter so you can hear the script. And if you were going to ask me for the script, there isn't one, so please don't send a support ticket in. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to, which is a good thing, listen to the podcast and actually write it down, and that will help you learn it. All right?
Yep.
So let's get started. The first thing I want to do, Peter, is I want to ask my listeners and you yourself this critical question. Okay? So here's the question.
Yeah.
Getting on the phones for you is A, an opportunity to be free, or B, an obstacle and you have to force yourself to do it. So getting on the phones for you, and I'm of course talking to sellers, is A, an opportunity to be free, or B, an obstacle and you have to force yourself to do it. How's that question?
Well, in my humble opinion, I believe the correct answer for most people is C, both of the above.
Either one, by the way, is pushing your boundaries. Right?
Yeah.
And we talked about that in detail on podcast number 358, why so many rookies lose without boundaries. And it was an odd podcast, but I got to tell you that if I was starting, that's the first podcast I would listen to.
Right, but would you have known it at the time?
No.
Right, that's the point. See, I mean, one of the things that I learned, and I think everybody should realize this, is if you're trying to do something, find people who are successful, listen to them, read their books, watch a video, and they'll say things that you'll disagree with. Well, I wouldn't do that. No kidding. You don't know what you're doing yet. So listen to people who have some success. Take what you can. Try it.
So with that said, how do we make the transformational period a lot less painful, less embarrassing, and switch you from obstacle to opportunity based? And
Yeah.
I'm being way premature right now, but I have so much attention on this. I'm making software to fix this.
What?
Just what we're talking about.
Oh.
How do you go from being a lot less the transformational period,
Yeah.
a lot less painful, less embarrassing, and switch you from obstacle to opportunity based.
Yep.
Okay, so we got that. So the next question I have for our listeners is, are you going to do real estate transactions for A, the money, B, the wealth?
And there's a difference between the money and the wealth.
But before you decide, let me explain this question a little bit.
Yeah.
Money is finite. In other words, having limits or boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Like every computer has a finite amount of memory.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how money is, right? So money, in my perspective, is like an airplane.
Okay.
You're in the passenger seat, you're on the runway, and all you can see is what's around you, right?
Yeah.
So you have finite vision, right?
Yeah, you see
And-
part of the wing, you see the tarmac, and you see maybe a guy with the flashlight thing. It's about it.
And maybe some houses off yonder, right?
Yeah.
Or some traffic or a highway or something like that.
Yeah.
That's finite, right? So that's the situation. That's the present time situation that you're in.
Yep.
Okay? So you're thinking about what? The present time situation you're in. You're not thinking about being 30,000 square feet up in the air, going 680 miles an hour. You don't think about that. Just like you don't think about your intestines working for you or your heart beating, right? You don't think about your blood going through your veins. It just happens, right? It's automatic,
Yep.
right? So that's how money is. So it's like, so what happens is you're not really taking that 30,000 foot view, and you're not looking at your destination, 4 hours before you get there to see what the weather's like. Right? You're not wondering about the landing gear when you go to land. The pilot is, but you're not. Right? So when you're talking about money, it's a very finite problem. So it's like, I need to make $20,000 to pay all my bills, to pay off my credit cards, or because I need this problem fixed, or I need that problem fixed. It's a very finite. Money is actually very, very dangerous. Money is not thought of properly. Money is an energy. It moves.
Yeah.
So either you tell it where to move or you don't. Like, you ever have a savings account and you put a bunch of money in the savings account, and then next thing you know, it just disappears? That's because you didn't name the savings account. You didn't have a reason for the savings account. Like, this is my reserve account in case I need to pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have an intention.
Right. So you can grab it for anything then. Like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and it just appears.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Those
Yeah.
are the boundaries I'm talking about, because you think to yourself, well, if I take that money from that account to pay my car insurance because I took a day off this week and I don't have the money because I wanted to go to the fair or go play with my grandkids, right? You take the money out of that account, it's okay. And then it never gets replaced, as opposed to having a different viewpoint of it, like, oh my God, if I take the money out of that account, I need to punish myself. I'm going to take 100 out, and I need to put back 125 because that's my reserve account, and it has to be, you know what I mean? It's
Sure.
your boundaries.
Yep. Yeah, when we first got married here many years ago, we weren't making much money yet, but we decided we should allocate the money to this, the rent or the car, or we made allocation. We thought, boy, things will be really tight if we do that. As soon as we did that, we had more money. It was the weirdest thing. Like, this goes here, that goes there. Good, and that's what's left. Okay. And next thing we know, it was more. It was bizarre.
Right.
It didn't disappear because we actually did what you said. Named it and stuck it there, and it made things better, in fact.
Exactly. So money is finite. What does that mean, finite, Peter?
Well, there's an end to it. It's the word finish. You know, from fin, fan, all the ways you can say finito, the end. It's like somebody hands you a bag of cash, you go, whoop-de-doo, next thing you know, it's gone. Somebody wins, some poor person wins the lottery, it goes faster than when you hand it to a rich guy. Because they know how to handle it, and the poor guy just like blows it and it's gone. How many senior citizens do we know that have, a 401k and the word that it's going to run out before they croak? Right. Because it's finite. And it's a pile of money, but it doesn't really grow necessarily.
So finite means having limits or bounds. It's having definite or definable limits. Mm-hmm. Right? A finite number of possibilities, having a limited nature or existence, complete, determinable in theory or by fact, in counting. It's measurement or thought. Mm-hmm. Right? So in this case, we're talking about having definite or definable limits.
Yep.
Now, I will tell you, I've been on an exercise lately in my own world, and it's been quite interesting because I've been thinking a lot about 10x, and I'm not talking about. I mean, I've read Grant Cardone's book several times, and he's got a lot of valid points. But what I'm talking about is not only 10xing, like it's more than just 10x your money. It's how do I 10x my business? So in that process, I'm going through. I've transformed from it being a quantity to being a quality. Because I realized for me to 10x my business, it's more about quality than quantity. Right? So I diverted there for a minute, but finite, in other words, having limits or bounds, like a computer having a finite amount of memory, right? This goes back to the time equals money false datum.
Right.
Right, which is where I keep saying that because that's what I'm going through. It's kind of this weirdness because it's like I'm making more money now than I have in quite a while, but it's a lot less work. Mm-hmm. Right? So why is that happening, and how can I capture that and do it 10x it again?
Yep.
Right? So wealth, in simple terms, is actually value or beneficial to more than you. So that's why I was just talking about, like, what I'm going through is instead of doing quantity, I'm doing quality. So wealth, in simple terms, is actually value.
Can you give some examples?
Yeah, or beneficial to more than you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, do you think that, how would you describe our relationship? Is it valuable to you or not?
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
It is. It's valuable because it's not just, we don't just go fishing and go
Right.
smoking cigars or something. We do things that are useful, valuable, produce more value, money, opportunities, future. Opportunities is probably the better word I could think of. Opportunities.
Yeah. So you should just fix your mic because it's rubbing up against your shirt and it's making. So
Is that
just
what it is?
make sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So next week in episode number 361, how many real estate deals do you need to retire?
Yeah.
Which I think I'm actually going to turn into a book. I'm going to talk about this then. So I'm going to skim over it for right now, but I have an answer for this, and it really comes down to work and play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So wealth is, in simple terms, actual value or beneficial to more than you. In other words, Sean and I created Creative REI Replay, right?
Right.
We did it for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically what happened was I was tired of getting like beat up by the daily crap. But it ended up being valuable for more than us, right?
Yeah.
So it's wealth for us because one of the things that I talked about many podcasts ago, this will probably sum it up. I don't know where I read this because I'd love to give him credit or her credit for it, wherever I read it. but I can't remember, so I apologize if that person's listening, which I doubt, but just in case.
Yeah.
The fastest way to build wealth is, and a good gauge that I use all the time, is how many people are paying you.
Right.
The more people that are paying you, the more wealth you have, not because of the money, but because of your value to them. Right? Which is why it's in this podcast, because you have to bring value to them. And it's going to come together in a couple minutes.
Well, nobody would go around paying you unless there's some value.
Right.
You have something that they think is useful, worthwhile, beneficial. Right. So you attract them because you did something right, and they give you money for that.
Right.
I mean, even singers. Look at some of the singers and musicians or artists we have, celebrities, movie stars. They go spend they go on tour or make a movie, and like all this money comes in, but they gave something beneficial, and it was just some entertainment to make them feel a little better.
Right.
But they'll throw $100, $200, $1,000 to go do that. It's crazy, but they feel there's a value there.
Right.
And people show up.
This first came to me when I read Ben Settle's book called Infotainment.
Infotainment.
Yeah,
that was a while back, huh?
Yeah, information and entertainment together. And if you're on my email list, I practice it every single day. So,
yeah.
Anyways, this brings us back to tongue-tied. Let me explain. Living life on external needs enables a scarcity mindset. And eventually causes you to compete with limited resources you believe you need. Living life on external needs enables a scarcity mindset and eventually causes you to compete with limited resources you believe you need. Like, one of the things you know about me is that, and it's taken me a while to actually realize this. I've been doing some of this in parts of my business, but now I'm going to do more of it because now I see it. Right? Like, I'm very quick to say, yes, I'll do the deal. No, I'm not doing the deal. More like, no, I'm not doing the deal.
Yeah.
And if you notice, the deals that I do have a lot of quality in them. I don't just do a deal to make $100 a month. My deals nowadays are $800, $1,000, $1,200 a month, and they have lots of value.
Right.
For me, for the seller, for the buyer, and for me. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that, and before we leave this podcast. Okay? So, I have found the only wealth you will ever feel good about comes internally. And your own thoughts, you will actually want to. I got to get this straight. So, in your own thoughts, what you actually want, that's what I'm trying to say, not external, but inside of you is what matters. And you figure this out by asking yourself these questions. But before I give you the question, excuse me, my mother's complaining to me on the phone the other day.
No, your mother complaining to you? Come on.
She's been really good since my dad's passed.
Yeah.
But she was on a rant talking about my sister's daughter's wedding that she flew up to Connecticut. The first time she'd been in Connecticut in about 10 years. And she was complaining about where her table was and where she sat. And how this person had a table this and that person had a table that. And she's telling me all this stuff, right? And how my sister didn't pay attention to us. And my brother-in-law, he completely ignored us. And like all this stuff. And I said to her, Ma, here's the deal. Stop saying all that. Stop telling me that because I don't want to hear it anymore. What you need to do, she's very Christian. She's very Christian. I said to her, you need to go into your Christian world and you need to take a look at this. You came to Connecticut to be here for your daughter and your niece. And you did that. You need to be satisfied with what you did, not with what they gave you. And you need to be satisfied with that you were here at 80-something years old, you went through the excruciating effort to be here for 3 days. And you need to take a look at that, and you will feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talked to her again, she told me, yes, it worked. That's what I'm talking about. All right.
Yep.
So we're getting down to the halfway mark here because I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to do this role play. All right.
Sure.
So here's how you figure this out. And I talked about these on the last episode. I'm going to run through them again. These are questions you need to ask yourself. You should write these questions down. I promise you, if you do this drill, if you answer these 4 questions, which, by the way, I've been trying to answer these questions for several weeks, and think I have the answers, but they change.
I mean, for yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
What do you think this stuff is? I just tell you guys to do this stuff and I don't do it myself?
No, but I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I think you come up, you hit the answers and then you come up with the questions.
Sometimes, but
right?
these, I'm trying to readjust my life because what I want is 10x my client base.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I announced a couple podcasts ago that I want to stop teaching rookies. And what I mean is coaching them one-on-one like I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Or in a group atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
The software we have, which is Creative REI Replay, does that for me. And I know that because we have hundreds of users in there now. And the amount of success that I'm getting with that software is almost 10x what I was doing before. Mm. Which is why this whole 10x thing is coming up in my head, because it's like, okay, now how do I do that at another level?
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Here are the questions. I gave you time to get pen and paper, hopefully. A, what you will and won't do for a real estate deal. I'll repeat it. What you will and won't do for a real estate deal. Or deals.
Mm-hmm.
B, what you will or won't do once you get the deal. B, I'm going to repeat it. B, what you will or won't do once you get the deal or the deals. And I covered all this in episode number 359.
Mm-hmm.
C, what your expectations are or purpose and how you will meet them. C, what your expectations are, your purpose, and how you will meet them. D, what the seller's expectations are and how you will meet them. So repeating it, what the seller's expectations are and how you will meet them. Now, I can promise you if you're tongue-tied on the phone, you don't have these nailed down because you don't know what you're doing on the phone. And most rookies are begging for deals. They'll just do whatever the seller will let them do and have no guidelines and no restrictions and no boundaries and just be the effect of whatever the seller will do. Right? So now this is like having your 12-year-old son telling you how to drive. That's what it's like.
I'm glad you didn't say your spouse.
Yeah. Or let's even make it even better. Your 15-year-old son telling you how to drive because he's read the owner's manual, but he's never driven. Right? My point is that they don't know. So the seller doesn't know what they can and can't do in most cases. Mm-hmm. Right? So you have to bring them up. You have to enlighten them and share with them how it could be done. And you have to be ethical and be on their side of the table and your side of the table so everybody wins. Because if you're not, then you won't stay in business very long.
Yeah.
Now the last one, which is what the seller's expectations are and how you will meet them, is where this podcast is going to help you. Mm-hmm. See, when I call a seller, I do not. What does that mean, Peter?
It means you do not.
I do not. I will not have the point of view that I need a deal. Mm-hmm. That stinks up the air. and sends the seller running away. And if I chase them, they run faster.
Mm-hmm.
This is your classic used car salesman. When you go into a used car lot, he's more interested in what commission he makes in putting you in that deal instead of what you actually need and want.
Yep.
You know, you got 4 kids and you're looking for an SUV with 3-row seats, and he's trying to sell you a station wagon.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't want a station wagon. They don't even make them anymore. Right? But instead, I want a deal. And here's the magic. So I don't need it, I want it. I have the attitude of talking to the seller long enough that they convince me I should help them. Because I have knowledge to help them.
Yeah.
So where do I want to help people? So recently, like in the last month, while I'm going through this transformation, and I have to tell you, this is one of the more difficult things I've done. I'm 59 years old, and this is one of the more difficult things I've done, this 10X thing. It's really, really, really like stumped me. Right? And I have a lot of data to pull from. I have a lot of resources. I have different groups I'm part of. Even my coach is struggling with me while I'm doing it. Right? So here's the question.
Yeah.
Here's my core question. Right? It sounds a little silly, but it's what I keep asking myself. Who can I help and be their hero? Who can I help and be their hero? Now, it's taken me this long beating around the bush in this podcast or getting set up for this statement to mean anything. So here goes. In every transaction, we have a seller and a buyer, right? Do you agree?
Sure.
The seller seems to always have the control. The buyer is at effect of the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So the seller is always at control. The buyer is effect. Until today. Right? Isn't that how it's been, especially through COVID, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, they have the house. It's like the guy that has the gold makes the rules. The guy has the house, and he thinks he's got the only house in town.
So, how do we transform that cause-effect relationship so we can become effect?
Mm-hmm. So we can become effect?
No, I'm sorry. I said that. I meant to say we can become cause and not effect.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
So the quick answer is greed glands. You swell their greed glands.
Yeah.
But the long answer is you become the seller, hypothetically.
You become.
In other words, you become the seller. In other words, if you were selling this property, what would you want?
Like put yourself in their shoes.
Right.
Okay.
So when I'm asking people, and I did this with a reluctant buyer kit, which by the way is that's the link for today is my reluctant buyer kit because I was selling that thing for $300, $297 for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I put it in the link today for free. It is a checklist of how to do exactly what I'm talking about. Scripts. It's even got in-house reports. It's got the in-house script, what you do when you're walking around or you're on Zoom and they're showing you the house. It is extremely valuable if you listen to what I'm telling you today. And how to be not tongue-tied.
Yep.
Stop being the buyer, start being the seller. That should have been the headline for today's podcast, but I don't think anybody would have understood that.
No, hell no.
Now, I learned this little trick in my career when I bought a deal and then started selling it myself. So I didn't realize this, and because of Creative REI Reply and my coaching, It happened more frequent on Creative REI Replay because what's happening is people get into that system and within a week or two have deals. And they're coming on the Thursday night support call asking, how do I get rid of this deal? I have this deal. I have this slot deal. I have this option deal. I have this rent-to-own deal. I have this subject to deal. Mm-hmm. How do I sell it? Which, by the way, Creative REI Replay does it automatically for you with just push buttons. You know, all you do is pull a phone number. You list it on Zillow, Apartments.com, and Craigslist maybe, and you start getting deals. You start getting, it pre-qualifies people. It does everything. It even sends you their driver's license when they're entering the house, so you don't have to show the house, right? So I noticed this phenomenon there first, and then I started noticing it because it was more frequent, like almost every week on Creative REI Replay support call, because we do a support call every Thursday night at 7, right? All of a sudden, I've had multiple people tell me over several weeks, now I know when you're selling a house, now I know what the seller's going through.
Yeah.
The amount of people that call them and the abuse that they get and the texting and the people that don't respond. You know, they text back and say, yeah, I want to talk to you, and they make appointments and don't show up, and all the things that you and I talk about.
Yeah, but you have to be on the other side of that to know what it's like.
Right.
Yeah, the last house I had, like, I got completely sympathetic again, like, oh God, that's what it's like. And then when it's over, you get more phone calls.
Right. It doesn't stop. So now that you're the seller and you're going through the process, you learn what not to do and what to do because you didn't like it or you did like it.
Yeah.
And you can cut through the chase. That's why I tell a lot of students, like, you know, and I mean a lot of students, you know, like they got a deal and it's a $3,000 deal or a slot deal or a $2,000 deal. And it's like, it's worth you doing it because it's your first deal. Just go through the process, meaning that you have to close it with paperwork, and then you got to go put it on the market, and you got to sell it, and you go through the whole process. It's worth it for you to get that education. And the biggest education that I'm talking about is having to sell it so that you now know how to deal with your sellers.
That's right. You'll totally understand it better because you've been through it. And it'd be better to make a few $1,000s going through all that than to pay somebody $10,000 to learn how to do it theoretically.
Right.
Do a real one and make a couple of bucks.
Right. And I had this happen to me particularly through the pandemic. That's when it really pronounced itself. I was abused by buyers, especially with investor buyers.
Oh.
I mean, it was almost criminal to hear these guys talk. And I got a taste of my own medicine because I'm an investor. Now, I don't abuse people. I'm blunt, but I do it with a lot of affinity and a lot of reality and I communicate well. So it's like I do it, at least I think I do. I don't have people complain. I mean, when I'm doing role-playing on coaching, we just did an event. It was 10 hours on Saturday and 8.5 hours on Sunday. And the entire event turned into a role play session, and I did hours of role playing. In other words, I was the one talking, right? I was the one buying.
Yep.
And I did hours. In fact, the guy that I did it with, he's like, just Saturday afternoon, I did a 3.5 hour session on role playing. In other words, I took students out of the audience, and I just talked to them as if they were sellers. Yeah. And every possible objections they can give me, I just handled it. Right now, they were very complimentary of me, and thank you for that. And I'm not trying to brag or anything like that. But my point is the reason why I am that way is because I'm doing what I'm telling you to do right now. Is I had to do a deal or two and become the seller so that I could see the other side of the coin.
Yeah, it's funny how this works. We spend most of our time, certainly in the beginning, just trying to get the house to sell it. I mean, this is a different business. Some businesses, you go buy the parts, put things together, and just go sell them. You're worried about if you can sell them. Our business, we have to buy a property first and then sell it. So we spend much more time working on the acquisition part, and then we get the house and what do we do now? And I find that's easier to sell it.
Right.
Except for the aggravation part of all that business.
Well, that's why we automated it all, because what I've learned is the 80-20 rule, which we talked a couple of weeks ago, like 20% of your effort gives you 80% of your effects.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's why Sean and I created Creative REI Replay. Sean has no tolerance for human emotion. He's like a robot. He has no tolerance for that. I mean, in the background, you just learn that he has no tolerance for it. He's like a robot. It's like he has no feelings. He's kind of numb to all of that stuff, right? I mean, I've like blown his head off, and he's like, okay, and then just keeps going. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's pretty cool that way, which is one of the reasons why he's my partner, because I do shit like that. So once you have the seller's mindset, you can always be one step ahead of them, right? Mm-hmm. And never be tongue-tied with their ideas, objections, stalls, resistance, any of that stuff, right? Mm. Okay, so now we're in the meat and potatoes of this transformation, right? Here's the punchline. How do we make an offer they can't resist?
Yeah.
Right? Compelling offers includes massive benefit to the seller. Right? And if you're acting as a seller while negotiating, you will know what is needed and wanted and offer it to the seller. So in other words, if I'm trying to buy a house from you, and I'm making an offer as if I would want the deal,
as a seller,
yeah, it's going to be a pretty good offer, right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to sell myself.
You know what this reminds me of, in a very extended way, of what Ron LeGrand tries to get through our heads, and a lot of people still just don't get. I listen to, some of the coaching students and people here and there, and they're making offers like, I can do this, I can do that. Ron LeGrand says, let the seller make the offer. What do they want? And what you're saying is a huge expansion on that, to put yourself in their shoes and see the benefits to them, what they want. I mean, if you give somebody what they want, how they say no?
Right.
Yes. What do you want for dinner? Lobster. Okay. How are they going to say no?
Right.
So what you're talking about to me is like really getting on the seller side and finding out what that is. And then how is he going to say, oh, no, I don't want that? It's what he wants. But you have to put yourself in his shoes. So
right.
That's my 2 cents. It just reminded me of that. I see people, I can give you this, I can give you that. No. What do you want? Lobster. I'll give you hamburger. Like, no.
Well, the formula that we've always talked about for dozens and dozens of podcasts is 4 steps, right? It's 1, find a motivated seller and communicate to them. Mm-hmm. 2, tell them what you do. I buy houses on monthly payments until I can pay you off or get a discount. Mm-hmm. Right? Number 3, ask them what's needed and wanted.
Yeah.
What do they need out of this transaction? What do they expect to get out of this transaction? 4, make them an offer based on what's needed and wanted.
Uh-huh. And I think people miss step 3 too much because we're not used to that. Or, hey, who starts this business or any business thinking about the other person rather than yourself, what you want? Honestly. Right. But you better start thinking of the other person pretty damn quick.
And then final, what I did is I took that formula I just gave you and I turned that into, there's only 4 things you need to do when you're on a call. Mm-hmm. Settle on price, settle on payment, right? Settle on the term or the time, and settle on deposit if they ask for it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right? So those 2 formulas will keep you from getting tongue-tied. Then on top of that, what I've recently done is have your boundaries so you know which deal you will and won't do, what you'll do with it after you buy the deal, what you will do and won't do with it after you buy the deal, what your own expectations are, and what the seller's expectations are. You put all that into the mix, you use those 3 formulas, and you'll never be tongue-tied. Yeah. All right, let's do the role play.
Okay.
So here's what I want to do. I want to do a $400,000 house. Mm-hmm. Okay. I want you to tell me that. So I'm going to do the script, and I want you to just so we can, for time's sake, so we do the right role play. Okay. I mean, we could do others later, but we'll do this one for now.
Sure.
So it's a $400,000 house. Your wife is got a high-powered job, and you are moving to another state because she's making a lot of more money, and you're trying to prevent her moving and you following.
Mm-hmm.
You want to do everything in the next couple of weeks, like 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
You don't really like the idea of giving me a deed, and you're stuck on your price. It's $400,000. It's worth $400,000, and that's what you want. You're not willing. I mean, I want you to be like just kind of smooth with it, because I want to get the script. I don't want to handle the objections. I just want to get the script out. The objections are another thing, right?
Sure. Just how it flows, how it should flow.
So when I ask you if you'll take monthly payments, you say no. I'd rather really have cash.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure. We'll just do that one. That objection. Okay. Which is not unusual.
Let me just do some math here.
Yeah. Also, let me know if I should have some any other numbers like mortgage payments or anything.
No.
Okay.
Hang on 1 second. I should have done this before the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. Ring, ring.
Hello?
Hey, Peter, it's Bill Hawthorne. I've been texting you about the house you have for sale.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Bill.
You got a couple minutes we can chat?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. So, looks like you're asking $400,000 for the house. Is that correct?
Right. 400.
And it is still for sale?
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't sell it. I want to make sure you didn't sell it to somebody else, and I'm not wasting my time.
No.
Good. And whose name is on the deed?
My wife and myself.
Okay, good. So she's not here with us, or is she around if we need her in a little while?
No, she's working.
Okay, so what happens if you decide you want to do this? Do we have to go, like, at that point, sell her on doing it, or what's the deal? Who's going to make the decisions?
Well, honestly, if it's a good enough deal, it's no problem. If it's something tight that I don't want to do, I would have to pull her in. But if it's something that I'm really good with, it's fine.
Okay, good. So, for me to be able to pay $400,000 for this property, what I would need to do is I would need to make monthly payments until we can get it paid off. Is that something you would be willing to talk about?
Well, I wasn't thinking of doing that. I was thinking a cash sale.
I see. Okay, well, have you ever sold a property for cash before?
Years ago.
Okay. So I don't know if you're aware of this or not, whether you're selling it on your own or whether you're selling it with a realtor, the cost to sell runs 12 to 15%. Did you know that?
I know there's a cost to sell, but I didn't think it was that high.
Yeah, so let me just go through some national average numbers with you so you have a feel for it, okay? Can we do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you're going to spend 5 to 6% if you have a realtor. And I suggest if you have somebody that will do it for less than that, you don't do it for that, because if you do it less than 5 or 6%, what happens is your agent will work very hard, but if they're doing it for a 4% commission or a 3% commission or 2% commission, the buyer's realtor is not going to bring buyers to that deal because they're not getting enough commission. Mm-hmm. So you're better off to pay the 5 or 6%. If you're not doing like you're doing for sale by owner, you're trying to avoid the realtor fees, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know this or not, but 88.7% of for sale by owners go to a realtor at the end of the day. And the reason why is because I have found in my own life that I need to get 100 to 150 people to see my ads, and that costs a little bit of money. Mm-hmm. And that will get usually 20 to 30 people. There's a bug walking across the floor, a big bug walking across the floor. Sorry. So I need to get 100, 150 people to see my ad, so I get 20 to 30 people to look at the house, and that usually results in about 4 to 6 offers. Mm-hmm. And I need that many offers to be able to make a good decision. So what happens is most for sale by owners don't get that much traffic because they don't spend the money on the ads. They just put it on some free sites and they feel like that's enough. Mm-hmm. And because they don't get enough action or enough people looking at the ads or enough people come and look at the house, they give it to a realtor.
Okay.
So it's either you're going to spend 5 or 6% with a realtor because the realtor's job is to actually bring you a buyer, market it and bring you a buyer, or you got to do it on your own. So we'll say that's 5 or 6%. The next number is 3% is for negotiating. Now, you know as well as I do, anytime you try to go buy a house, you're never going to pay the asking price. In fact, if you have a realtor friend or want to check it out online, the average across the nation number is that people pay 97% of the asking price. You can get that in the MLS. You can check that on the website. So that means there's a 3% negotiating cost, right?
On average.
On average, yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be higher, it could be lower, but it's on average. So that's 3%. Mm-hmm. And then the next number is you're going to have 3% for repairs. We don't call this repairs in my office. We call this bribe money. And here's the reason why. The buyer is going to pick a home inspector to come in and actually inspect the property.
Right.
The buyer's doing it because if I picked a home inspector, they're going to think I'm influencing him or her, and I'm not.
Sure.
So they pick this person. Even if your house is gorgeous and you just did a renovation, they're going to want to justify their $400 or $500 fee, right? So even if the house is gorgeous, they're going to. I mean, if your house was built 10 years ago, it's going to have different code violations than it does now. Like maybe on the back porch, instead of the railing, being 48 inches high, it's 42 inches high, or instead of the railings being 9 inches apart, they're only 6 inches, or instead of being 6 inches apart, they find all these things, right? They're just trying to justify their fee. The bottom line is it doesn't matter because 90 to 95% of the time it spooks the buyer. So what happens is you either need to do the repairs that don't really need to be done just to keep them in the deal, or you got to give them money back at closing so they can go do it. It's actually your second negotiating point when you're selling a house. That average is 3%. And then the last 3% is actual closing costs. In some states, like in my state, what happens is we have a 1% conveyance tax.
Yeah, sure.
Some have excise taxes and D taxes. Regardless of that, you're still going to have closing agents you're going to need to pay. You're going to need to do proration on property taxes. You're going to need to proration on sewer and water, sometimes insurance. So that usually averages about 3%. Does all that make sense to you?
Well, when you add it all up like that, because you don't think about it, you think about the realtor and the lawyer. I think that's what goes through my mind. And these other things, who sees that? So that's around 12?
That's 15%.
Eek.
So on your house, if you sold it for $40,000 and got cash, the cost of you getting cash is $60,000.
Yuck.
So do you have that much equity in the property? How much you owe on the property?
No, I have the equity in the property. I don't like the idea of spending that much. That's why I'm trying to sell it myself. But some of that other stuff, I guess you can't get around.
Okay, so the first thing that happens is if I do what I'm talking about, if I make monthly payments that we can get you paid off, I'm going to save you that $60,000 because I'm going to pay the $400,000. Minimally, what happens is because what I do is I specialize in buyers. See, about 80 to 81% of the population looking for a house, the people looking for a house, don't qualify for a bank loan.
Really?
So that means 20% qualify, and that's where they go get a realtor, and they're very picky buyers because the realtor and the mortgage guy are sucking all the money out of them, and they want to get everything they can so they can go as long as they can without doing anything except paying the mortgage. With us, our buyers are very happy to take handyman specials, and they're very happy to just get into a house. So they turn their head on a lot of things because they know they couldn't get a house normally unless they had somebody like me helping them. So typically we give them 2 to 3 years minimum, sometimes longer, but 2 to 3 years minimum. Okay, and we help them get qualified, and they rent from us, and they're owners now. So they're owners. So they're not renters.
They're not tenants.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have no landlord obligations. They're owners, so they plow this snow and cut the grass, and they put batteries in smoke detectors and they unplug toilets. They don't call you for that. Like right now, you have a mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't call the mortgage if you had a backed up toilet, would you? The bank?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So that's the position I'm going to put you in when you're all done. You're just collecting money, because the buyer is not going to be calling you for that, or I'm not going to be calling you for that.
Mm.
Okay. Now here's another thing we need to talk about. How much is your monthly payment?
It is $1,800.
Okay, good. That's very good, because I think on a $400,000 house, I could probably get you $3,000, $2,800. Right? Because if they were to get a mortgage, that's how much a mortgage would cost them.
Yeah.
So far we have $60,000 that I'm going to save you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if, say we were to do this for 3 years, if I were to make you $1,000 a month, that'd be $36,000, right? Over 3 years.
Oh, in the monthly. Yeah.
So you'd have monthly cash flow of $1,000 a month, so that'd be $36,000.
Okay.
So we're at $96,000 already, right?
Really?
Okay.
Okay.
Now here's another thing. The person that's buying the property from you is just renting. They pay you money to use the facility. It's not a mortgage.
Yeah.
With you. So that means every time they pay you rent, you pay your mortgage. Agreed?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to go conservative, as if it was your first year. Probably, how long have you had the mortgage for?
12 years.
Okay, so I'm not going to use that number because I don't know what it is. But let's say you're probably paying about $1,000-$1,200 a month principal reduction. Do you know how much it is?
Oh, just the principal, like in the mortgage?
Yeah.
I think at this point, because it's not a $400,000 mortgage. It was less. The house was less when I bought it, so.
Yeah, it looked like you paid $260 for it. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, it was. You see that online?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think right now my principal coming off my mortgage is $700 a month.
Okay, good. So every time that that mortgage gets paid, you're making another $700, right?
Yeah.
You're adding $700 worth of equity.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So because the main payment comes at the end, I get you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And then I have less to pay the bank back.
That's right. So if you go 3 more years, you're going to have $25,200 less money to pay the bank. He still owes you the $400,000, but you're going to pay down your mortgage $25,200 over the course of 36 months.
Right. Okay.
So you're making $25,200, right?
I get to keep it. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the last thing I want to tell you about, or 2 more things I want to tell you about. The first thing is IRS depreciation. See, now you're not going to be living in the house, and it would be considered an investment property.
Right.
So they allow you to write off the value of the building for 27 and a half years.
The building.
Yeah. Not the land, just the building.
Right, because the land doesn't depreciate.
Your
Okay.
accountant will do that, right?
Yeah, I see.
So that means you get IRS depreciation.
Which means it comes off of my taxes.
Yeah, so that means whatever your income is. So I'm guesstimating you're about another $4,000 a year.
Okay.
So over 3 years, that's another $12,000, right?
Yeah. So you take the
4,000
value of
a
the
year.
house.
Yeah. So if you're making $100,000 income, right?
Yeah.
Because of the depreciation, you're now only making $96,000 because you took $4,000 right off. You don't have to pay taxes on.
Oh, okay.
Now, the last number I want to cover is appreciation. We don't normally talk about appreciation a lot, but in your case, we're going to talk about it. So the national average of appreciation is about 3%
per year.
per year.
Oh
So
yeah, at least I imagine. It's been crazy lately, so I would imagine at least 3.
So 3% is 12,000 a year, right? Mm-hmm. So if you multiply that by 3 years, that's another $36,000 for keeping the house. So if I add all those up, give me a second.
Well, I do have a question on that. If you already have a price set on the house, how do I get more? If we already settled on a price on the house.
Right. So if they don't perform on the option agreement, you're going to be able to resell it for more money, right?
Oh, sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah. Or minimally, you could put. I usually do it after the first year. I give them the first year for free. But you could put a 0.25% increase on the property every month they don't pay you.
On the price of the house.
Yeah. You could put that in the option agreement.
Oh. All right.
I mean,
So, the longer they stay, then the more the price goes up, which I would appreciate because why would I want it to go long? Well, I am making some money. Yeah, but if they stay longer, I would like more money for that.
Right.
So you do a 0.25% a month, add it to the price of the house when they buy it.
right.
And if they don't, you do it again.
Now, you ready? You sitting down?
I am.
We got $60,000 for closing costs we're going to save. We have $36,000 for positive cash flow. This is over 3 years.
Yep.
We have $25,000 towards your principal reduction. Mm-hmm. We have $12,000 in IRS depreciation. And then we have $36,000 in appreciation. It's a total of $169,200. Is that worth taking monthly payments for 3 years?
That's pretty strange. You don't think it's going to be much money, but you put all that together. So how do you do this?
Okay. So that's it. Hopefully our listeners enjoyed the role play because that's pretty much how it goes. Now, obviously, you need to, there are going to be questions. People are going to ask questions like you did in the beginning. Like, you need to know your average price of your house in your area, and you should do a little bit of homework on some of these. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is an advanced podcast because this is what we work on when we do coaching, is all these type of strategies.
And this is the other side of the theory part and the philosophy part.
Right, exactly.
You don't want enough of that? Here, bang! Here's the hard goods.
So, in final, I have a question for you and my listeners. Right? Mm-hmm. Was that a compelling offer with massive benefit to the seller, whether it's hard for them to say no?
It's almost too good to be true. Like, wait a minute, I thought I'd make a few $100 a month if I just rented it.
Right.
It's pretty crazy because, we don't think of all those little details. And we started thinking of that the last few years, especially going to our fine accountant and seeing how the numbers roll out. Depreciation for this, and the savings you get.
There's a number I didn't cover there.
Yeah?
Intentionally. It's actually more than that.
Would you skip?
Because what happens is when you rent it and it becomes an investment property, you can write off the interest that you paid your mortgage company, which is how all this started. Because in February, I get all my I don't know, 1099s or whatever they call them from the banks that I pay. Which, by the way, this is the reason why I do subject to deals, because the reason why you're getting all this benefit is because you're keeping the deed in your name. Mm-hmm. If I do a subject to deal, all that money comes to me now because the deed is in my name. I get all those write-offs.
Yeah.
Okay, so the point that I'm trying to make is that like one house that I have that was not a $400,000 house, was a $200,000 house. I paid $6,600 a month in taxes.
A year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said a month, so a year.
Yeah, a month. Okay, yeah, it's a year. I paid $6,600 a year in taxes. Right, so I was able to take that right off. So think of it this way: on that property, I was making $500 a month. I'm getting $600 a month right off. Right. So let's just do this. Let's just say the $12,000, which was the capital, the IRS depreciation, right, plus $6,600. Before I even started, I got $18,600 worth of income.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You call it income. It's income, money you get, and money you don't have to spend. So that's income when you get to keep it.
Even if I made no money this year, if I made zero money, they'd send me a refund for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just two of them. I'm not talking about the principal reduction and market appreciation or the positive cash flow. I'm just talking about just your taxes alone.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk about, so I told the seller it was $169,200 for them to keep it. Mm-hmm. Right? Now watch this. Let's just say $170,000.
Yeah.
Right? Divided by 400,000. That was a 42.5% return.
Yeah.
So they're making 42.5% more money by keeping the house and taking monthly payments.
Yeah.
Okay? So when I hear rookies telling me that creative real estate is an alternative method and too many people are telling me they want all cash, Bill, it's because they're not using this method.
Yeah.
They're taking cash because they don't know any different, and you're a rookie and you don't know how to explain it to them like I just did. Mm-hmm. And I've never done this publicly at all. This is the first time, and it will be the last time I ever do it. And no, I'm not writing you a script. You can replay this and write your own script unless you get in my coaching group. And I'm not telling you, I'm not trying to sell you being in a coaching group right now. I'm just telling you I'm not gonna spend time to give it to you for free when I don't have to. There is a difference between listening to a podcast and having a coach. Mm-hmm. All right, Peter, so we're 6 minutes past the hour, as usual. I hope that helped everybody. I hope it doesn't. I hope you're not tongue-tied after this. It's a little bit of work, and I know there was some theory. We spent 45 minutes or 40 minutes on theory, or probably 35 minutes on theory, which I hope you understood why we did that. And please leave us a review. Please subscribe to us. Please go into the description. There is a link in there for the Reluctant Buyer Kit, which is how you can get into a house. I promise you, if you use that Reluctant Buyer Kit, which pretty much means that the seller is trying to sell you, and you're not being needy. They're trying to convince you that you should get the house. Mm-hmm. If you do what that does, then soon you will buy a property, and you'll be able to test what I just talked about. Be able to get a deal and test selling a property and going on the other side of the coin. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, as I mentioned earlier, podcast number 361 is how many real estate deals do you need to retire? And that's going to be an interesting podcast. Actually, I wrote that podcast, and I haven't written one since. I'm behind 2 or 3 podcasts because I'm kind of stuck on that one. It's a really good podcast. So, hope you'll join us then. And we're over and out. You have a good week, and I hope you flourish and prosper. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.